This is Ray Mofield, and we're again recording for the Oral History Project. We're producing 3 reels, one for the State Archives in Frankfort, Kentucky, one for the Pogue Library of Oral History at Murray State University, and one which is produced and paid for by Shelby McCallum WCBL Radio for the Marshall County Library System. Our guest at this time is Helen Stone Gardner. She's a retired teacher in the county system and has consented to be our interviewee for this particular reel. We welcome you to our microphone, Miss Helen. You were born in Marshall County, were you?
Yes, I was.
And what part of the county did you come from?
Well, it was down near Old Birmingham. It was between what they call Big Bear and Fair Dealing, I guess, and then down towards Birmingham in that area. My grandfather and grandmother had a big farm there.
All right, for the benefit of the genealogists who may use the tape, who was your father?
John Jackson Stone, they called him Jack Stone.
All right. And your mother what was her maiden name?
Gaitha Gold.
Gaitha Gold. Now, haven't I recently read something about the Gold family that you wrote in the History Journal? Did they come from England, was it?
Originally.
Uh-huh.
From Lake Wales. Some of the Golds came from Lake Wales.
Yes.
And they began to record the families in 1066. And that was the first time they had any records of the families in England.
At the Norman Conquest.
And the gold
or Gould, it was sometimes spelled then, was it?
Different ways. Sometimes it's Gould and sometimes Gold. We spelled it here Gold. And sometimes it's Gole, way back in the years past. And the king wanted to tax the people, and he began to have the families in England, the families recorded in what they call the Doomsday Book. They had records of all the families there.
Yeah.
That's when that started. So we reached back that far.
Well, that's farther than most of us have any idea about our families, so you're fortunate there if you're interested in genealogy. All right, you were born, you say, near Birmingham. Does that mean did you go to school to Birmingham?
No, I didn't live there, but I think Mother and Daddy moved away when I was just about 2 years old.
Where did you go to school first?
I went to school at Olive.
At Olive, all right.
It was a 2-room school at that time.
That was almost a big city school compared to several of them. I think there were 56 one-room schools at one time, so I'm told, and I've heard the names of a good many of them. The last person I interviewed had gone to Stringer, he said, but you've gone to a 2-room school in the city of Olive. Okay. You remember any of your teachers?
The first teacher was Miss Ratliff, Miss Bonnie Ratliff.
Bonnie Ratliff, Van Ratliff's sister, Uncle Dick's daughter.
That's right.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Miss Flora Hartley, who is still living, was my next teacher in the grades.
Miss Flora, now living in Hardin, yes.
And I took music lessons from her when I first started taking music.
So you were, taking piano?
Piano.
Picked up a little culture and just all sorts of things. Well, was that unusual for your day, for students to take piano lessons?
Well, there was a few around that did, not too many in Olive, though, that did. I don't know but one that did besides me, I guess. I'm not sure about that.
All right, and then you kept going on to school, and were you When did you get interested in being a school teacher?
Well, it was when I was in high school, and when I before I graduated from high school there at Hardin, I went to Hardin High School. I wanted to take home economics. Well, we couldn't take home economics at Hardin because they just they didn't teach home economics at that time. They did later. And so I wanted to decide I wanted to be a teacher then.
You were in the class of what, of 23?
That's right.
And so when you decided you wanted to be a teacher, you went to where, Bowling Green?
Well, I went to Murray first, and I received my life certificate there. Finished 2 years college there, but they didn't offer home economics then, and
Well, they weren't a senior college till 26.
so I went to Bowling Green, left there and went to Bowling Green, and I finished there, and then I taught home economics. Well, I taught home economics, but it wasn't usually, I don't know what you would say.
It wasn't vocational
No,
Smith Hughes.
That's right. It wasn't
Yeah.
vocational at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I taught at Aurora
Yes.
1 year, home economics, and before that. And then I finished at Bowling Green. Then I went to Sharp. You want to know that?
Oh, yes.
I went to
Now,
Sharp.
were you at Sharp along about, what, World War II in that general area?
Yes.
Thank you.
I started teaching there in the fall of '35, and I taught there 8 years. And so the summer of '42, my sister came home and wanted me to go home with her. They were visiting for just a week's vacation. She lived in Michigan at that time, and so she said the war had started, and said they're hiring women now, and you could work during the summer, and then come back and teach. So I didn't want to go at first, and I decided I would.
Did
So
you
I got a job the
become
very first day I got there.
Rosie the Riveter sort of thing, huh?
Well, they put me on inspection in the aircraft plant. They was just started full blast right then, and I didn't know one end of an airplane from another at that time. But anyway, I taught then till school started, came back, and my sister got sick and was in Memphis, and I had to.
You mentioned your sister. How many children were there in the family?
There was 4.
You had a brother?
I had a brother and 2 sisters.
2 sisters, all right. 3 girls and a boy. Okay. And so then after you had worked and made the wartime plant money, though you still liked school teaching better, so you came back to Sharp that fall?
Well, I decided I worked a year.
Uh-huh.
And I came, at that time, at the summer after that, the Japanese had surrendered, and the war was coming pretty close to the end, we thought, and they were laying off women, and I decided maybe I better come back while I had Mr. Rose wanted me to come back and teach at Sharp. I teach at Calvert City, so I came back and taught a year there.
Now, I believe I heard Wilson Gantz say one time that when he was principal at Sharp, you were teaching there. Was that true?
No, not while I was principal. I mean, while he was principal. John Lawrence Grigg was principal when I quit teaching there.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever teach with...
Mr. Holland, Homer Holland, was the principal when I first went there. And then John Lawrence Grigg. And then I came to Hardin.
Gregory
later.
Became president of Drawns Business College, and Homer Holland went to Lone Oak. And he coached the state basketball champion team of 1938. I remember that. I guess were you teaching at Sharp the year you won the state championship?
Yes. From the Sharp one.
You had Red Culp and Jim King and
Yes.
Barrett and all the others, Metcalf, so on and so on. Okay, that brought you up to, were you married when you were teaching in Hardin? Was that?
I came to Hardin in 45, and I was married in 45.
Mm-hmm.
After, well, I taught 1 year, and then
So that's where you
then
got
I taught
the name Gardner.
Yes, I taught at Hardin then 11 years, 1956.
And then
They
they
had-
built the brand new high school
So,
at South Marshall, and you taught there until your retirement.
13 years.
And I believe the very year you retired, my wife took your place.
Yes.
She was wanting to leave Benton because her daughter was going to be her student next year, and she didn't relish the idea of having her daughter a student. Afraid somebody would say she is partial to her or something or other. So
I had 100 students in home economics that year, and they were awful nice, sweet girls, and I hesitated about retiring then. I didn't have to retire exactly that year.
Mm-hmm.
But I finally decided I would. Mr. Connor came down one day and asked me, there'd been another application or two in for the school, and he wanted to know which one I thought would be better for the job, like I would know.
Yeah.
But I thought I knew, and so I suggested your wife,
Mm-hmm.
and she got the job. So I was glad.
Well, that's fine. I know you and she went to a lot of meetings together over
yes,
the
we went
years.
to
You'd tear off to the state home ec teachers meeting every summer somewhere.
over at Hardinsburg.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. For years they went to the same place every time, didn't they?
Sure
Went to
did.
Hardinsburg.
Mm-hmm. First time we went there, first time I went there, was it was an old where they had camp for boys,
Mm-hmm.
and so we stayed there, and then later on they built this real nice building, and it's still there. It's a beautiful building out there.
Mm-hmm. Now, back when you were in school, do you remember anything about discipline and so on? Were they tougher on you then than they are now? Make you mind more? Or?
I don't know too much about. I don't visit the schools now.
Did you ever get a whipping when you were in school?
No, I didn't. One teacher scared the life out of me one day. There was a blackboard on the side of the wall there at Olive. I was probably in the 5th grade or something like that, 5th or 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just took a piece of crayon. They'd use it for a blackboard when they were having arithmetic lessons. And I was sitting right next to that wall. So I just picked up a piece of crayon and started to write something. And then directly I heard the principal say, Helen, will you bring that yardstick to me? And he had thrown the yardstick back there, and I didn't even know it. That had me to quit writing on the board.
Yeah.
Oh, me, if I didn't, my face turned red, and I was really scared to death when he called on me.
What was your favorite subject when you were in, say, elementary school?
Well,
They didn't teach home ec then, did they?
no. Well, I like geography, and I like reading, too.
And then when you got in high school, you were still interested in more or less the same things. What do you think got you off into the field of home ec?
I don't know. I helped Mother a lot at home and had learned to cook. I know one time Mother was sick, and when I was about 11 years old, and I had to make biscuits for breakfast, morning or two, and I don't see how Daddy ever did eat them, but he never said a word. He just
Ate them like they were good, huh? Yeah. Well, maybe they in World War II, they used to sing a song. I'm sure this probably didn't refer to your biscuits, but they were always made fun of Army food, you know, and they said, "Oh, the biscuits in the Army, they say they're mighty fine, but one rolled off the table and killed a pal of mine."
Oh.
But Dad was loyal. He came right on and ate them and said they were good. Well, that's fine. That encouraged you. Do you remember any amusing incidents, particularly that happened when you were in school, besides writing on the board and having to bring the ruler back? Did you ever go to sleep and fall out of the chair?
No, I never did go to sleep.
Never did that.
This was just fun and play when there was a pond across the road in the field out there, and we would go out at recess and at noon and skate on that pond just with our shoes. We didn't have any grass skates if it's frozen over hard enough. But there's one boy that the ice was beginning to melt a little, and he fell in and had to walk about a mile and a half home with his wet clothes on winter time.
Oh.
Then we
Sorry,
there
I'd
was a
died of
house across
pneumonia.
there right by the schoolhouse that people had moved out, and they left a little old stand table that they had on the back porch, a water table they called it, where they put their bucket of water. So we, a bunch of us took this, the boys took it over there. Back of the schoolhouse there was a hill that would slide down from the top of the hill down to a ditch. So they took this old table and turned it upside down, and all could get in there and hold to the legs while we'd slide down the hill. So it turned over with us and slid in the ditch, and one of the boys was kind of injured on his ankle pretty bad, but we had a big time for that, doing that. But one time, when I first started school, in high school, they thought it'd be fun. My class thought it'd be fun to go walk down the railroad that morning, April Fool Day. First day of April, they called it April Fool Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were going longer than we should have been. When we got back, why, our principal, who was Brother White,
Johnny White.
a preacher,
Yes, I remember him.
and he was very strict. Well, we really did have to toe the mark whenever we were going to high school. And he had us to memorize for our punishment the 23rd Psalm. And I was glad we did afterwards, because probably I wouldn't ever have memorized it if it hadn't been for him.
And it is a beautiful piece of literature
That's
and a great scripture. Yeah. I heard someone told me that you always had a lot of trouble with Vorse Utley.
Well, he wasn't in my class, but
and he said
he
that,
was there.
In fact, Vorse told me this one time, that he says, "Vorse, you're going to keep on till you and me have to lock horns." And that was his expression, I suppose, is we're going to lock horns. And see who would be the winner. Well, I guess Brother White was the winner at that
I
time.
guess he was. He always was.
Yeah. All right. All right, to continue our conversation, you were married to Louis Gardner. You had no children. And then you were teaching at Hardin, and you announced that you were going to retire and so on. What were the any other jobs that you had aside from the one in Detroit during the war, or do you always taught?
Well, no, I don't know. I never did have any other job except I just worked at home.
Yeah.
When Dad didn't need me.
Did you work on the farm?
I pulled these silly worms off of of tobacco.
I was going to ask you if you ever had to pull off hornworms. And my wife always said she was afraid of them, and she'd knock them off with a stick, and when they were great big, and then kill them by rubbing a stick on them and mashing them on the ground.
That's the way I did. I was scared of those silly things. I didn't like to bother with them. I'd take two sticks and pull them off and throw them on the ground and either stomp them or mash them with my stick. And then I suffered tobacco, and I gathered a little corn, not very much corn. One fall, my brother and I gathered a little corn one time after, it was on Saturday. Of course, he didn't keep us out of school to do anything like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was a teacher once himself, and he believed in education. And so then I also picked strawberries, and we had strawberries too on our farm a few times.
Boy, that hurt your back, though, didn't it?
And he sold the strawberries, of course. But I picked strawberries for Mr. Charlie Watkins one time. He had a lot of strawberries and just a lot of pickers. And his two, one of his sons and daughters was in my high school class. Well, one year I picked enough strawberries to made enough money to buy a dress to go to the big thing, wear to the big singing.
The fourth Sunday in May,
Fourth
and
Sunday.
oh, you were really dolled up, weren't you?
Well, I don't know about that, but anyway, I had a new dress.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's a real human interest story. Since you've retired, you've had a chance to do some traveling, haven't you? Well, what are some of the places you've gone with the senior citizens group?
Well, I haven't gone to the senior citizens so very much, but some of them too. That's right.
Did you make a trip with Janella to Hawaii one time, or?
I went with Barbara McDermott. She sponsored a trip.
Barbara McDermott, yeah.
And we went to. Well, first we got on a bus at Sharp. At Gibbersville. We had to meet there.
Mm-hmm.
That took us to St. Louis. Then we got on a small plane there and went on to O'Hara Airport
in Chicago.
In Chicago, and then we got the big plane, 747, and that took us to Royal Island straight through. We didn't stop at California. A lot of people stopped there, but we had this big plane that took us clear through, and we got there about sundown, and they met us with all these lovely flowers and put them around their neck and toured the country and flew over. We took a trip once while we were there on small planes and
you went from one Hawaiian
three or four, and then the rest of them we flew over them just to see the islands. See the rest of the island.
Now let's see. The big city is Honolulu. That's on Oahu.
Yeah.
And then you went to the big island, which is Hawaii.
Yes.
And I guess the large city is at Hilo.
I believe
on that town. And
then
then there are two or three other smaller islands
and
like
then
Maui.
We saw where the plane, the Japanese
Bombed
Pearl Harbor. We went there, and we got on a boat and crossed over to the Memorial Building and went inside of that. And saw all the names on the wall there, that everybody that was killed at that time. And then went to the cemetery where some of them were buried there.
So you...
And, of course I went to Washington, D.C., to the Southern Harmony singing.
Yes, we spent a week there.
And sang.
That was
every day.
Very enjoyable.
That was real nice.
Of all the places you've been, what do you think is the most outstanding?
Well, Royal Islands, of course, is different from the others. But then I've taken tours for a week or 10 days to other places, too. I went to the eastern and northern States at one time.
I sort of like the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. There's all
Oh,
that
yeah.
big museum.
Oh, that was really nice there.
I really like that.
And Governor Senator Ford, which was the governor of
Kentucky at that
of
time.
Kentucky at that time, had invited us to come. All of this group, it was a big bus full of us, and then some that went in cars. I think you were the one that went in car, didn't you? Did you all go in a car? You didn't go on the bus, did you?
Yes,
Some of them did go on in cars.
Yeah, I rode the bus.
Well.
Janie and I rode the bus.
Uh-huh. And then he had a reception at the Smithsonian Institute for us one night, and that was a big thing.
Oh, yes.
Band.
I remember that.
All kinds of good food there, and
I remember sitting and eating with Governor Earl Clements that night, former Governor Earl Clements. Very good. We're getting down toward the end of our time. Do you remember your first radio set?
oh yes, that's been a long time ago.
Mhm.
That was back in.
Did you go to a neighbor's house to hear it, or?
The first one that I ever heard was, I guess, was at Murray when I was in college up there. This family had one, and I think the man listened to it more than anybody else, and had earphones.
Mm-hmm. Didn't have a loudspeaker then.
That's right.
Yeah. Very good. And just to hear Amos and Andy on the air was really something, wasn't it? Well, what about your first TV? Were you as excited about that as you were?
Well, I enjoyed that. Yes, I got that back in the 60s. I didn't get one of the first ones.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do you remember any of the early officials in the county that you could recall when you were growing up?
I remember one of the first, when I was in the grades, Mr. Prince, can't remember his first
Walter
name,
Prince was
the first, the superintendent, school superintendent at that time.
later became
And
a county judge.
He would come out to the schools, you know, I remember him coming.
And, of course, you remember Helen Rose, who was previous superintendent prior to our present superintendent,
Sure.
Reed Condit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember. Now, Miss Margaret Heath, I was interviewing her, and she said she remembered a fellow named, I believe it was Harry Peters.
Yes. The first year that I taught, he was superintendent at that time, school superintendent at that time.
And later became state superintendent of public instruction, which was quite an important jump and something. All right, we haven't gotten in anything about medical treatments and so on. Did your parents keep you well by feeding you sassafras tea and catnip tea and?
Now they'd have sassafras tea every spring, and we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very good.
And what about some of them have mentioned that they would always take asafoetida, hang a bag of it around their neck to keep them from getting sick.
I know some people that did, but I never did do that.
You didn't do
that? No.
All right.
Some of the kids that come to school with that around their neck.
And you could certainly smell that stuff, couldn't you?
That's right.
Well, is there anything in particular you'd like to add before we sign off the tape for today?
Well, not that I know of. We didn't finish up, say too much about my, the gold, my grandfather.
Well, tell us a little more about that.
Well, to go back further than that, I won't take too much time. But the King of England in 1220 sent some people to the Holy Land when they had the, what they call it,
Crusade?
Crusade. And he went on the crusade. John Gold was one of them that went on the crusade. Sent him, and when he came back, the king honored him and gave him a grant of land in Seabury, I believe it was, Seabury, England. And then there was a Richard Gold. There was a Richard Gold that came to, they'd come to Virginia and settle there and in different places. And then on down into North Carolina. And my grandfather came from North Carolina, directly from Virginia. And I think he walked, he was in the Civil War, and he walked from North Carolina after the war was over through the Cumberland Gap
Mm-hmm.
to Kentucky, because there were some wolves that had come from North Carolina that he knew, and he
That's a pretty good walk.
and he came here, and he married a wolf then. So I've got quite a mixed up family with the names as far as the names are concerned. Because my mother was a Gold and my daddy was a Stone, and married a Gardner,
And there was
one
a
of my
wolf in
cousins,
there somewhere.
and then, well, my grandmother was a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So, and one of my aunts married a shepherd, and grandmother was a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So, and one of my aunts married a shepherd, and and Lucille Lily married a Lily.
Yeah.
And so still a lot more of them. But my grandfather Gold then helped to organize the Bank of Marshall County. And there was a Benton Bank then, but Bank of Marshall County was organized, I believe, in seemed like it was 1903. I'm not sure about that. And he was first vice president, and of course on one of the board members. And, that's about all I know about the bank business.
Well, I think that
Except they-
family has
except they still
contributed.
have.
Yes, it's still in business and
Yeah.
still doing well.
Yeah, that's right.
And your family has played a wonderful role in the history of our county. We want to thank you, Miss Helen Stone Gardner, for coming and being with us on this tape, which we produced for the state libraries, the archives at Frankfort, the regional library at Murray State University, and the county library here in Marshall County on a grant from WCBL. And then my name's Ray Mofield, and that ends our broadcast for today.